just get this. Oh, there's no chair up here. Let me borrow that chair. Oh, thank you very much, good sir. Oops, I think I put that on the wrong side. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so that's my family. And this is my talk. Let me get out of the way. So yes, my name is Kent C. Dodds. I am a front-end dev at Task, and I'm here to talk to you guys about AngularJS and what 1.3 is going to bring us when it's finally released, or at least one of the cool features, which is one-time data binding. So, and Angular 1.3 is in beta 17 right now, I think. So it's, yeah, hopefully it gets released soon, but they haven't given any sort of date for when this is going to happen. But I have a project using this feature, or it's actually using the beta of 1.3, and it's works great. And this one-time data binding is a good sign for Angular. So two-way data binding is what makes, here let's zoom in on this, what makes Angular so easy and so amazing, and what got us all really excited about Angular in the first place. So you can just write this stuff, and boom, you have like real-time data binding between your models and your view, and it's amazing. We love it. It makes us smile. But it is a slippery slope, because what Angular is doing to make all of this happen can, over time, slow your app down, especially if you're using a lot of ng repeats. And so what each of these is this is, in Angular land, a watcher. And this is also a watcher. And it, like, the more watchers you get in your Angular program, the longer your digest cycle takes, because Angular is running through all of your watchers, making calculations and saying, did anything change? If it did, then update the view. And so the more of these that you get, the longer your digest cycle takes, and the slower your app looks. And we're going to see what that looks like. So it's a slippery slope. And this is the slide that I should have been on when I was explaining all that. So your digest cycle is, like, whenever you see an app that looks sluggish, it's because their digest cycle is taking too long, most likely. So yeah, makes it slow. And it can surprise you, like a bear falling on your head. So this is why one-time binding exists in Angular 1.3, because it makes it possible for us, like, in many cases, you're just displaying something that's never going to change, and so Angular doesn't need to watch it for changes. And so you can tell Angular that with this new notation right here. That is all that you need to tell Angular, hey, I only want you to bind this particular thing one time, and once it is no longer undefined, then stop watching it, just take it off of the digest cycle loop, and boom, it will never be updated. So yeah, it's great. So here's some example usages of this bind once. So you can do it in your JavaScript. You just add this double colon, and it'll do that calculation for you. And then in special cases like an ng repeat, or like I believe select has some special like verbiage, I guess, that you use. That kind of like determines where you put the double colon, but in most cases, the double colon goes right before the expression, and that just defines whether it's bind once. And so that would not be bound once, this would. So demo time. How bad is it, and how to use it? So before I go actually into this demo, I'm going to explain what you're going to see. I thought, when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is way awesome. This means that I can, like, use Angular as a template engine, or like as a template rendering thing, more than just binding stuff all over the place, and my performance is going to go great. But occasionally, things do update. Like I get something from the server that says, OK, now this model is different. I want you to update. And so occasionally, I do want to have things update. And currently, Angular has no story for that, for these or one-time bindings. And so I created a very small directive that will store a template that you give it, like the element that you put the directive on and all of its children will be stored. And anytime you tell it to, it'll recompile that template and replace itself. So you can have, you still have a watcher, but you're explicitly telling Angular when to recompile this template. And that template could contain 200 watchers that are bound once, and then boom, they're off the digest cycle. And then I also have this more hackish remove watchers thing that we'll look at as well. So yeah, whoa, let's make that big. So this is my collection of Angular things. So we'll go to, oh, actually, we're there already. Recompile. This is basically everything that I just explained to you in a wall of text. So you don't really need to know, but I'll show you anyway, I guess. The way that you use this directive is you provide it with some sort of model, and it will add a watcher on that on the current scope. And whenever this changes, it will recompile everything, including the element that it's on. So all this will be recompiled every time we click on this recompile all the things button. And we'll see kind of how that works here in a second. OK, so here we have our regular bindings. So we've got a bunch of people here. This is cool with their avatars, and they have all this cool information. They have their favorite crazy number, and this favorite crazy number is what's making this particular watcher takes a long time to calculate. So this is kind of I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but like a canned example. But I'll show you what's making this take so long. And then you have these posts, and these posts are all fun and cool and just random text. And so if we look here, let's actually look at this really quick. I'll show you why that crazy number thing is taking so long to do, making our digest take so long really quick. So it's actually saying get person's favorite number, and we provide it with the index of the person. And then we do this crazy long calculation that you would never, ever actually do. And this is a really bad thing that you would never actually do. But this is just making our digest take long so you guys can kind of see the benefits that this will give us. So anyway, that's all that this favorite crazy number thing is doing. So let's look at what our digest cycle looks like. So here are some Angular stats. We have 726 watchers on the page starting from here down. And the average digest cycle length is 64.22 milliseconds. And if you actually, here, let's hide this really quick. This is a normal digest cycle right there. It should be under 20 milliseconds or even under 16 milliseconds for you to get 60 frames per second, which is what makes it look all nice and happy here. But if we add in those 723 watchers, especially with that one that takes forever to calculate, then it looks extremely sluggish, and you can actually go to this and play with it yourself, and it is just so frustrating. So you can see it's like 80 milliseconds every digest cycle, and if you're not too familiar with the digest cycle, it takes it runs like crazy, really crazy, and that's what's resulting in this just looking so ugly and hideous. So then if we switch to this one-time binding, now we have, it's exactly the same stuff as far as what we're looking at. We have a new watch count, 322, and I'll show you where all of those are coming from. And our new digest cycle is super short. Can I get some applause? Yeah! All right, so yeah, it looks exactly the same. we have the same result. I can still like email this Carmel guy, who's actually Berta, a man, and like all of this stuff actually works. The one thing that doesn't work, and this is where the recompile stuff comes into play, is when I click on this guy, like you have this, you've clicked on this guy X many times. So every time I click on him, he, like that number increments. And because these are bound to the exact same model, you'll notice that number is incrementing when I click on him over here as well. The reason that that's not incrementing is because it's bound once. And so like that's a problem. So if we have control over this and it matters to us, then we can recompile this card and say, hey, I want you to take this whole template and recompile it. So boom, it recompiles, and now we have 31 times. And our recompiled card, it's been recompiled one time, woo, and now twice. And then I also have this recompile over the whole list. And so like we can click on this guy over here and recompile the whole list, and now it's 36 times. So this is kind of stepping outside of bind once, this recompile thing. This is my thing, just to make that clear. This is something that I made, and it's not baked into Angular. But is anybody actually interested to see like exactly how this recompile thing works? Or okay, great, because we're basically done with most of the bind once stuff that I wanted to talk about anyway. So we will hide both of these. Okay, this is the code for it. It is, I think, about 30 lines or so. It's pretty small. We just create a scope or isolate scope for this directive. So by putting this KCD recompile on here, we're creating an isolate scope here to isolate it from the rest of Angular world.
That's actually a child scope.
Oh, thank you for the correction. I appreciate it.
Sorry.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Okay, so then we have a compile function, and most of the time when you're making directives, you'll actually just use the link function. But yeah, interesting thing about directives is the compile function returns the link function in this case. So yeah, that's something fun. But the reason that we're using the compile function is so that we can get the pre-compiled template, and we store that in a variable here. And we just get the element itself as HTML, this funny and wonky weird thing that we do down here. And then we return the link function. And then inside the link function, yes, you're right, it is the child function. So I get the parent of this child scope, and I watch on the parent whatever value is passed into the KCD recompile, which in this case is recompile all the things. And so that's on the parent scope. And then if so whenever that is changed, whatever, like if it's changed from 2 to false or from 1 to 2, whenever it's changed at all, this will run. And I have this option where I can say like I want it to use a Boolean. And so if I were to just say change it from true to false, then I would have to wait until it has been recompiled and then set it back to, or sorry, this is really confusing. If I was to say, hey, I just want to change this from false to true, and then I want you to recompile, then after it recompiled, I would myself have to change it back to false so that I could set it to true again. I'd have to manage all that. So what this use Boolean attribute is it just says, I want the directive itself to do, like, to reset that attribute to false after you've recompiled. So have I lost everybody, or is anybody, like, is that, hopefully, okay, I like the thumbs up. I'm sorry for those of you who don't feel that way. I apologize. So anyway, all this is doing is saying, hey, do I actually need to recompile? And if I don't, then just return. So then if I am using a Boolean, I'm going to assign that back to false on the parent. And then I'm going to create a new element. I'm going to recompile the template that I stored back up here with the scope of the parent. And so now I have the new rendered or compiled template, and I replace the current element with that. So it's actually really simple. And then I destroy all of the old stuff. So where's this stop watching thing? Oh yeah, sorry. So if you're not familiar with how scope.watch works, is it returns a function that when invoked will stop watching. Yeah, you don't want to have watchers that are just watching and not doing any good. So we stop watching, and then we destroy the scope, because this whole directive is actually inside this new element now. So we have a whole new instance, I guess, of this directive inside that new element. So that's how that recompile thing works. This is not in any kind of module that you can like Bower install or anything. You can come up here and copy it to your clipboard and use it as your own. And I won't mind. It's okay. So yeah, that's basically how that works. I think I wanted to also show this hacky remove watchers thing that we can do. So we'll zoom out again. So yeah, this is a really simple demo. It's basically the same card and stuff. But what this remove watchers thing does is, let's look at the demo here. We have, actually it's this one down here. Yeah, KCD remove watchers. And then we have this save expressions thing. So what remove watchers does is it takes the element that you place it on and goes through all of the children and just like takes all the scope from all the children and just blows away all the watchers. So this is like a hackish way to do bind once that I probably wouldn't really recommend, but I thought it was fun. So I am showing you guys. I apologize, I guess. But like there are some things that that you want to have continuously watching. So for example, like this is controlled by a watcher. Whenever I click on this, this is a Angular Bootstrap component that I'm using, and it's just saying, hey, if it's open, then I want this specific CSS to apply. And so this is something that's totally outside of my control. And so even if I was using bind once through my whole project, I wouldn't be able to use bind once in this instance. And if we had like a list of 1 billion of these, which is a really bad idea, but if we did, then we wouldn't be able to control any of the watchers that this third party has in their code. And so this is one way to deal with that. What this save expressions, where is this code? Yeah, what this save expressions thing does is, we'll just take that out really quick and view changes, is it allows me to, like, I'm clicking on this, you can't hear it, but yes, I'm clicking, and it's really frustrating because over here it works fine, but it's not working over here. So it allows me to provide it with an array of expressions that I want it to not blow away. And that's, yeah, so if it contains any, like if the watcher expression is contained in that save expressions, then we're not going to actually remove it. And so, yeah, that's one hackish way that you can control even vendor files. Like if a particular vendor has a whole bunch of watches in their stuff, then you can blow their watches away too, which is dangerous, but it could be necessary sometimes. So here's the magic commit for when we got this bind once stuff. Thank you, Igor, and yeah, this other guy. Much appreciated. And there's a little discussion down there that's kind of interesting. And then Todd Moto, I don't know if you guys follow this guy on Twitter, but he's a good guy to follow. He gives a couple other suggestions of things that you can do to speed up your app, so I would definitely recommend you checking that out. And then if you are not able to upgrade to 1.3 for some reason, I think 1.3 drops IE8 support. Am I wrong? Is that right? Yeah, I think so. So if you have to support IE8, I'm sorry for you. And But there is an alternative solution, and this actually works pretty well. It's not as easy as just simply adding a double colon to your expression, but it does work really well, and I would recommend looking into this if you need to speed up your app a little bit, remove some watchers from your digest cycle. So yeah, and if you want to like see all these links and like look at them, you just go to slides.com/can'tseedodds/angularbindonce. Maybe I'll post that in the meetup, and you can look at that later. But yeah, that's it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we haven't done lightning talks before. So if you've got slides, you can just plug it up here. If you don't, I guess just shoot from the hip, whatever you're going to do. And then I will time you for 5 minutes. And after your 5 minutes is up, I don't care if you're still talking, we're just going to start clapping. And that means you're done. So I don't remember who all signed up. Tyler, Zack, and somebody else. Anyway, whoever wants to come up first. Yeah, 5 minutes. I'll wait till you set up, yeah. Good.
Kent, how'd you do this?
It's pretty tough. You gotta squeeze.
You would, right? All right, what's up, guys? I'm ready to go. I apologize for some of you. This might be pretty beginner. So a while ago, I wrote a blog post that got pretty popular about the difference between factories and services and providers. So I've wanted to present on it for a while, but sadly, it wouldn't cover like 30 minutes. So I figured it'd be a perfect talk for a lightning talk. So today I'm just going to do factory and service because it'll be humiliating if you start clapping and I'm still talking. So we're just going to rush through this. A lot of the differences between those two is just JavaScript fundamentals. So if you've done anything with like the this keyword or the new keyword or like constructors, I apologize because this is just going to be a review. But for those of you who aren't too familiar with those, hopefully it should be a good talk. So it's a very common use case in JavaScript. Can everyone see that? Cool. So it's a very common use case in JavaScript to write a function. And the purpose of that function is all it does is it will create an object, add properties to that object, and then return that object. So here I'm just going to create an object, add some properties to it. So the property name on that object is going to be the name I passed in. So all stuff that mostly everyone here is probably familiar with. And then we return that object. So now I could do something like var Tyler equals a person. And Tyler is going to be what gets returned from this function, which is, oh, yeah, that's not good. It's even harder when it's like in the back of your mind, like this 5-minute clock is counting down. So this is intense. It's great, though. I'm stoked. OK. Tyler. Cool. So very common use case. But the problem with that is if we go in here and we add a method in here, so let's say name. Matt, what's my time?
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Perfect. So there we go. So all it is a method that says my name. The problem is every time we create a new instance, every time we call that function, we create this new object. And the problem is that say we were creating 1,000 instances of this person, we're recreating this this method 1,000 times in memory. And that's not that efficient. And so what JavaScript has given us is this thing called a constructor, which does some cool things. So same thing, pass a name and age. And I'm going to use this keyword because, so normally what I did was I created an object and I added properties to that object. Well, what JavaScript does behind the scene is they come in here and they say, OK, what I'm going to do is give you a keyword called this. And what it's going to do is on failed lookups, this is going to delegate to that function's prototype. So all a prototype is, for those of you who don't know, think of it as like every function has a backpack. And all these, every functionality, every kind of function or method that you want shared through all your instances, you put in the prototype. So that's why on all arrays we can do things like slice and splice, because they're technically on the prototype, which you can think of it as like array has a backpack. So JavaScript does this. So now we have this object, and we can do this.name, this.age, and this.say name. Not that. OK, so behind the scenes, that's what JavaScript does. And what's my time, Matt? OK, we got to go quick. OK, so yep, I know I'm getting there. OK, so we need to be able to tell JavaScript, hey, I want to call this in constructor form, meaning I want JavaScript to run this line for me. If we forget the new keyword, it won't do that, and bad things happen. That's JavaScript, right? Lives on the edge. So now we could do Tyler.name, and everything works. And another good thing about doing constructor form is this line is on failed lookups. It looks to the prototype. So instead of that prototype being being copied every time we create a new instance, they're all sharing that same thing now. OK, so now the difference is with Angular. I'm just going to say it real quick, and then I'll type it 5 times. So when we use a service with Angular, we use the this keyword, because somewhere in Angular's code, services are instantiated with this new keyword, which makes sense. When we use a factory, what we do is we create an object, and we add properties to that object, and then we return that object, because factories aren't instantiated with the new keyword. If you want to read more, Google likes Angular service or Angular factory. You should see my blog post. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Hello? Can you hear me? No? I'm getting blank stares. OK. Wow, that's really small. Let's make you bigger. And then let's zoom in, but that doesn't work. Presentation mode, which is right there. Boom! All right. OK. Except for I want to be out of this. Go away. OK. All right. Whew. OK. Awesome. All right. So I have written a very simple route Angular app using route provider. It's pretty simple. You click on the different routes. The route changes in an ng view. I'm going to just assume everyone knows what that is. If not, see me later. But here's the code that does that. In a typical Angular app, you have a config block where you call on route provider and you specify some routes, right? You can specify a controller to be loaded when that route hits, a template to load into the ng view. And when I had a big app, I really wanted this functionality right here, to be able to load style sheets on the fly as I hit different routes, because I had lots of routes, and I don't want to load all of my style sheets on up front. So I was like, well, why doesn't Angular provide this for me? And I read a whole bunch of blogs about why this is a horrible idea and performance issues, and I was like, I just don't care. I want it. So I came here, which are the Angular docs for route. And the point I want to make on this whole presentation is go to the docs and learn the docs and love the docs. And then when you hate the docs, view the source. So all of Angular source code is right there, provided through that little view source button. And then the source actually tells you a lot more than the docs do. Whoa, exit presentation mode. Switch to this file. Oh, I guess I could have done that. Nope. Nope, can't. Just kidding. Anyway, there's route change events. If you're probably, most of you are probably familiar with a route change event. When that route change event occurs, such as going back to presentation mode, keep breathing. Okay, there's code that looks like this. So on a route change, you get a route change start, route change end, route change success, or route change success. Anyway, you get these different route events, and you get a next and a current on route change start, which tells you what your current route is, what the next route you're going to is, and those are the route events. All that is explained in the Angular docs. What it doesn't tell you is there's all these awesome private properties, which I know is a horrible idea, but they're there, and I used them. So they give you this awesome stuff. And the awesome stuff, how am I doing, Matt? Oh. Oh. You had me all excited. Okay. Exit the presentation mode. Go away. Okay. All right. Okay. Keep breathing. Okay. Enter the presentation mode.
You can zoom with your fingers, like just in the text area. Can you zoom with your fingers? No.
Life just changed, folks. Oh, that is great news. Okay. So this is what that route object looks like. And this private route object contains all this cool stuff, like the template URL, the controller, all the stuff that we specified in whoosh, whoosh. Okay, so cool. All right, all that stuff that we presented in the when call. Well, if you add any attributes to that options object in the when call, you get those in this route object, like right here, CSS, which by itself isn't that cool. So if I enable these, then down here, ooh, okay, shrink, 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 2 minutes. Okay, so in here, now on route change start, I look for if the current route has CSS files, if the next route has CSS files, and then this directive on the head element actually removes them and adds them as a link to my page. But the point that I wanted to make in this whole thing is use the docs, use the source code, and then you can make Angular do anything you want it to do, and it's really awesome. So all this code's on my GitHub repo if you want to see it, but that's not the point. Anyway, thank you. That was still attached.
Does anyone else want to do a talk?
Say your name again. My name? Zack. Boman. I don't know what I did with the mic. Just ran away.
What's the thing? Plug is dead. Ooh, I don't know if I have this plug.
Oh, you're a poor PC guy.
Not looking good.
I pity you.
Work. Oh baby, here we go. Okay, so oh, right here. Is this working? Yes. So actually what I want to talk about is not like a technology. It's a kind of architectural scheme. I want to explain it pretty quick, and then maybe we can just discuss in the remaining like minute what you guys have found. So it's really a derivation of the I forget who sponsored it, but there's like these blog posts going around about making large Angular apps
and basically the whole idea is you structure it by feature rather than by like what it is. Yeah, so I mean, so the traditional one, like the Angular seed, is you have a directory for directives, you have a directory for controllers. Problem is, like in large apps, like they get super unmaintainable. Like I had one project where in our directives folder we had like 40 files, and you just have it becomes a mess. Like you can't reason about it. So this architectural kind of thing, you cannot see it. Oh, dang it all. Let me just bring up a text editor. You don't really need it. Nope, Word. Okay, so we have a pages directory, and we have a common, and then we have a components directory. So the idea is that a component is like a chunk of functionality, bigger than a directive, like a little login box. You know, you can put it anywhere, and it has the right connections to your database, and you can just put it anywhere. And so then you would just call it like login component, and then you just do that. Common is like here we can put like directives, services, like some widget. And then the page this is the traditional page. We just have a bunch of HTML and then stuff. So the idea though is then in the page you compose it. You try to make minimal use of like the little widgets, and you mostly use components. So you're just kind of piecing it together. And then that. So I can. I wish you could see this better, but like, so the way I have this, so we have pages like you can't see that worth crap. No, you can't see it. But like we have these pages, and we have a component right here. It's just like a login thing. Just like some pretty generic functionality, but then in welcome, like this is all it looks like. So the idea is that your pages are pretty small, and then lots of the stuff is in your components. And then you have over here like little mini directives in your common. So that's like kind of the architectural scheme. And also the other advantage is you can isolate the component and just test the heck out of it, and then yeah, just kind of a better way. And also like if you want to do like, you can also, if you enable endpoints, you can just open the components individually. So that's like the basic idea. Has anyone like switched here from like going to a more feature-oriented schema? Like how has that worked out for you in your? Because I haven't gone super down that route, but it seems like a really good idea, and that's where I'm headed.
It makes it much easier to not reuse the components because you think about how you're going to structure them differently, how you think them will be usable, and how you can take them from one project to another.
Right. Okay. So the components, what I was talking about here, it's really just a directive, but like it's kind of like a big directive. Like, in my mind, that's a useful distinction, but like, do you guys find that very often? Like, you have like, what do you think of the idea of like maybe having, at least internally, like thinking of this distinction between like kind of small widget-like directives and then like components, which you can just slap places?
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to have like a small little like
Date picker.
Yeah, those are something you can much more easily reuse between apps.
Right.
Whereas the components are a little harder to plug in, but you can still refactor them a little bit once you have them in that form.
Right. Okay. Any other comments on this paradigm?
I have a comment. I would also, like, I do this on my personal projects, and it's amazing. But I also keep all my styles and my templates and my JS all together. And
Right.
Like, even my images, if
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that like makes life so much easier.
Right.
If you have to go back and edit something, you can see everything.
Well, and it's also nice, like, if you, like, properly silo your app, like, you can just, your little components don't have to know about, like, how the other ones are, like, you can just treat them as, like, black boxes, and, like, I feel like that's kind of the promise of web components, and I feel like we pretty much are already there with directives, really, but we just haven't really made use of it in that way, and I think we really should. I'm probably out of time, so thank you.